just for me, Andy, the way they cast aside both these sides with a minimum of fuss and a maximum of panache, I really, really enjoyed. And, you know, when I was talking before about the loose concept of this show being the moments where you thought this football team is a serious one, for me, it was the end of this week when we've just beaten two really big names. You know, probably if you were to ask people who were the best teams in Europe over the last 3 years, they'd probably say Man City and Real Madrid, and we beat the both of them in the week.
Yeah, and I think the first result probably feeds the second, if you will. Like Neil said about the Man United game, forget it, it's Old Trafford. I think that there's a message in there, just forget it's Real Madrid. You know, you just go out and play your own football. And I think that's been I think we hadn't beaten Madrid in eight attempts going into the game. Yeah. And that was hanging over us. And obviously we had the two European Cup finals. And yeah, we swept them aside. I mean, you said surgical. It wasn't that surgical. Mo Salah missed the penalty. I mean, Keller famously saves an Mbappe effort.
One, yeah.
But yeah, again, and risk of repeating myself, I think we do, over the two games that you mentioned, again, we see things that have played out over the course of the season. The amount of goals that we scored this year between 3 yards out in the penalty spot, you know, countless times with midfielders breaking late into the box. But more than that, it was the assurance of the players on the pitch. I mean, you mentioned Dominic Szoboszlai there. I remember going into the season, there was question marks about him. And I know he didn't play in that game now, but as you said, there's progression to where he is now. He's undroppable. I mean, to be honest, from a really selfish point of view, I was just happy to see two knock past Thibaut Courtois.
Because he was showed it could be done.
Yeah, showed it could be done.
He was due then.
Yeah, he was due. He didn't have the force field. But no, I don't think you said serious football teams win 2-0, and I couldn't agree more. And that's become a pattern. It seems to become a bit of a narrative now as well.
There's two more 2-0s coming up.
There's two more 2-0. Well, there you go.
Well, for United, really, they've got to be.
I mean, I think Roy Keane was talking about it the other day. But if United kind of give us a little bit of belief, we've absolutely cemented with those two results against Real Madrid and then Manchester City.
I think there's something really interesting in both of them. I think in both of them, at the point at which we get to 55 minutes, Liverpool are worthy of it being 2 ahead, and in neither game they are. In the Madrid game, the first one, it's worth remembering, they get that penalty, and when they get that penalty, they've only played well for 3 minutes.
Yeah,
and they've got
it's
a pen.
fucking typical Madrid.
And they've got a pen. Firstly, he saves it, but then what happens is Liverpool almost act like they've conceded. Liverpool basically go and pile the pressure back onto Madrid, and finally the game breaks and Liverpool get to make it 2-0, which is hugely significant at that point. And I think that tells you something about that side in that moment. And I think what we've seen since is, I think you can have this conversation and you can talk about gears, but you've got to use them and see them. You know, it's easy to say, well, I think Liverpool have got another gear to go to, but if you're never in that gear, then you don't have you. And that day you got to see that. And then the same thing happens oddly against City, in that they start the absolute unbelievable gear. It's only 1-0. And what they don't do, at the point at which maybe, you know, you can't play at that level for 45 minutes, you can't play at that intensity for 45 minutes, they have the maturity to accept, all right, we've not made it 2, we should have done, but what we're going to do now is we're just going to conserve. And I think that Liverpool are very on top for that first half against City till 25. It should be 2. From 25 to 40, it's a bit of an even game, but Liverpool have got enough to have them at arm's length, and then we go strong again just before the break, but we still don't make it 2. In that game in the second half, what I think is really interesting is City are actually on top by the time you get to about 65, 70. And what happens is he makes a couple of smart substitutions, one of whom is Nunez, comes on up front, and he just scares the life out of City. And it's interesting recently when the manager's been annoyed with Nunez, the game he actually cited in terms of what I expect from work rate is the Manchester City home game. Nunez comes on and Ruben Diaz goes, I want no part of this, and drops their line 15 yards. They'd push right up. I can remember it's in front of me in the ground. They were doing the thing where they were playing in our half. Diaz was the deepest man, but he was in the centre circle in our half. And they were doing that because they felt they were on top, and they found themselves a little bit and we'd fallen back. And Nunez comes on and straight away Diaz says nope, drops right the way back in, and then pretty quickly thereafter we go and make it 2-0 because we find the gear, we move into the gear, And from there, then, you know, it's a 2-0, and we're worthy of the 2-0. As I say, we would have been worthy of the 2-0 at half-time. But just when it looked as though there might be a sting in the tail, well, if there is, it's our sting. And I think that was, you know, absolutely brilliant. And when he makes it 2, not least because the nature of the team City are, there's also just a thing where everyone on the ground knows, Guardiola knows, Ruben Diaz himself knows, every City player knows they've won this now. That's finished, that's over. We know it as well. And that's also something that's absolutely brilliant. You know, if you go back to, for instance, and again, it's not talking anyone down, but the 4-3 under Klopp, where we were finding ourselves in that moment in 2018, it's 1-1, it goes 4-1, and they get 2 back late. And they're getting the ball out the net when they make it 4-2 and 4-3, because they think we can still do this here. And listen, that was a 100-point City team, and it was a Liverpool team that hadn't won anything yet. But it's just worth sort of saying it goes 2-0, and everyone, if they could just have walked off the pitch there and then, the Manchester City players would have just walked off the pitch there and then. If they could have just declared on 2-0, they'd have said, you know what, what's the point of playing from here? Sound, yous have won, it's over.